There's what seems to be a mysterious story that takes place in our Parsha, Parshas Vayishlach, which has an impact to this very day on what it is that we, today, in the year 5781, are allowed to eat according to the laws of Kashrus. And of course, I'm talking about the story of Yaakov with the Sarah Shel Esav, with the Malach, the angel of Esav. Yaakov Avinu, in the middle of the night, goes back over this little stream, this little body of water, climbs back over in order to go back and retrieve some pachim kitanim, some little flasks or jugs that he had left there. And all of a sudden, there's someone who attacks him. And this is what we're told. It seemed to be a man, and he's fighting, battling with a man, but Yaakov later realizes, and we are told all along, that this is really a malach. And Chazal explained in further detail, it's a malach, it's the angel of Esav. And as Yaakov is battling him, it gets to be toward morning, and the malach says to Yaakov, let go of me. I need to go and daven. The sun's coming up soon. And Yaakov says to him, nuh-uh, I'm not letting you go. Lo ashalechacha, I'm not letting you go, ki im berachtani, until you bless me. And so the malach says to Yaakov, Mashmecha, what's your name? He says, Yaakov. He says, listen, your name's not going to be Yaakov anymore. It's going to be Yisrael. And the reason is, Ki sarisai melokim v'anashim v'tuchal, because you fought with God, meaning you fought with this malach, this angel who's doing the work of Hashem, and you were triumphant. But the story's not over. So as Yaakov is walking away, when he realizes that he was battling for this long period of time with a malach, so he's limping. And the Torah tells us, because he's limping, that we, the Bnei Yisrael, cannot eat the gid hanashe, cannot eat the sciatic nerve of an animal, because ki takab kaf yerach Yaakov, because the malach, this angel, was fighting with Yaakov, knocked his socket, his hip socket, out of place. And because of that, we forever remember this incident, and we are not allowed to eat the gid hanashe, the sciatic nerve of an animal. In fact, there's a very complicated area of halacha, which is called nikur, which is the removal of the fats and the removal of that sciatic nerve. So complicated that the practice of Ashkenazic Jews is not to eat that area of an animal because it is such a difficult thing to do. Is that it for the story? So we can't eat the gid hanashe simply because Yaakov's hip socket was knocked out of place? Why should that matter? An injury? So therefore we're to remember that battle? There must be something deeper. What else? What else is the lesson here that it has to impact us today? So the Chizkuni explains something absolutely magnificent. And he said, go back to the beginning of the story. He said, this is a knas. The fact that we cannot eat the gid hanashe, that we cannot eat the sciatic nerve of an animal, to this day, is a knas. It's a punishment. Punishment for what? Well, not a punishment for Yaakov's behavior, but a punishment for the behavior of those who are not even present in the story. How so? Well, the very beginning of the story was the fact that Yaakov went back all by himself. Vayivaser Yaakov levado, Yaakov is left all by himself. And then this man starts fighting with him, who we know was the Sar Shel Esav. But the Chizkuni explains, you want to know why we can't eat the sciatic nerve? That's a knas, it's a punishment because of the actions of the sons of Yaakov who were not even present in this story. Well, if they weren't present in the story, what did they do wrong? And the answer is that they were giborim. They were warriors. Look what we see later in the Parsha with Shimon and Levi. They took down an entire city. How did they ever let their father walk out in the middle of the night all by himself? It was their inaction that allowed their father to be left alone that made him susceptible to eventually having his hip socket knocked out of place and to be limping around. It was the sons who would later hear the story, and we can only imagine that they learnt the lesson. But it's for all of us to remember not simply the story because of the fight that Yaakov had, but the inaction of Yaakov's sons in being there, in escorting and holding the hand of their elderly father. What a lesson for us, which is applicable in our lives, of escorting and being there with others, if not physically, certainly during this time of the pandemic, but being there emotionally. For people who we know, whether it's family or friends, who are going through a difficult time and may feel like they are alone, for us to show them that we are with them and that they are never alone. So when we look at the menu the next time we're at a restaurant, or the next time we're at errands and we're looking over all the different cuts of meat, let's remember that we can't eat the sciatic nerve, not simply for something that happened back then that was part of the story, but for that which even could happen today. And let's make sure that we are misakein, we make up for, we correct the mistake, the inaction of the sons of Yaakov, and always show others that we are there to support them. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.